Yeah, guys, this is what happens when you don't know what the temperature inside your engine is. You completely melt your piston and rings. Okay, folks, welcome back finally to another episode of Odyssey Life. I'm Bernie. This is the Odyssey Life Workshop, and today I'm jumping for joy that you decided to stop by because it's been a long 2 weeks, guys. We're getting ready to wrap up everything here on our FL350, but don't worry, this is Odyssey Life. Odyssey content is all we're ever going to do, so just stay tuned for the future, real near future, because we're going to have things going on. But today we're going to be installing, no, first we don't have a burnt piston. That was the piston from our old machine, or from our old engine rather, before we had our machine rebuilt. We'll talk about that later. We're going to be installing an exhaust gas temperature gauge and an RPM gauge today, but I've made it so super simple that I've got everything done. All we have to do is put the stuff in, plug it in, hook it up, and it's done. And then I'll explain it to you as we go along. But let me grab the camera. I'm going to give you a walkthrough and let you see what we got going on. All right. So RPM gauge, exhaust gas temperature gauge. They're both Guangdong China brands, but they are LED. They do light up. And I decided to stay with the 2-inch gauges because I really like the 2-inch gauges. They're small, they're non-obtrusive, and but you can still see them. So anyway, I've gone ahead and repurposed the KC light wire harness that they sent for the lights that we didn't use because we just changed the plugs on the lights and utilize the factory light harness. But this is a fused harness. It has a 30 amp fuse. So we'll run these connections right here to our battery. I accidentally cut the red line, so we'll use yellow for red, black for ground. And then I went ahead of time and I made these 2 jumpers. This will come from the battery. One will go to our gauges. Then these 2 will go to our secondary harness right here. That's going to go to our switch right here. Unfortunately, I couldn't find from the way I figure it is, the ignition on an ATV doesn't work the same as an ignition on a car, because with the ATV you have a kill switch. As opposed to a car, the kill switch is the key. So there isn't an accessory setting on an ATV, or at least on the Odyssey FL350 ignition. There is no accessory. It's on and off, and the kill switch is on and off. So you have to you have to grab power from the battery. If you try to grab from up front, every time you ground it, regardless of what you hook to, it's going to act as a kill switch. You're not going to have spark. But I went ahead, I got all these connections, even the back of our gauge, this one right here, these wires were completely exposed all the way from the gauge. So I got heat shrink tubing, cinched that up, got all these connections, everything in, to where we're just gonna stuff all these wires down in. I've got everything ran, or I don't have everything run. We'll run this from the battery, hook everything up. I have our signal wire ran to our spark plug. Our spark plug. It goes up and around here. I followed all the factory spots, except I didn't buy enough green. And back in here, in fact, you can see right there, I had to use a heat shrink with solder in the middle, butt connector for red, a red wire that goes up underneath and comes out here. This will be our signal wire for our spark plug for the RPM gauge. I went ahead and put a connector on here, as well as put a connector on the signal wire of our gauge, so everything to just be disconnected. I didn't want anything permanent. Yeah, as I said, I've got everything already done, so we can go ahead, start stuffing it in, and then I guess we can go ahead. We're gonna warm the machine up. We're gonna make sure the gauges work. We're gonna make sure the exhaust gas temperature gauge works. Real quick, we do have a exhaust gas temperature probe that we have to put into our fitting right here, and they said that this has to be, it says between a quarter way in the diameter of our tube, which if we put this down, it's pretty much right past that mark. So that's pretty much where we want to put it, right about there. So yeah, we'll lock that down and we'll get the machine fired up after we get the gauges in so we can look at them, and we'll go from there. All right guys, let's get to work. Okay gentlemen, I'm going to start with our fused wire harness from our battery. We're going to get that slapped in. We don't want to cut any of these wires, so I'm making a service loop on the ground wire. Guys, can you hear me? Help! In my dimension, I feel like I'm not in the real world. In this world, everybody's subscribed to my videos. It's a little weird. People leave comments and they like the videos. Guys, I feel like I'm in another dimension. Subscribe. Don't forget to like the videos. Bernie out. Alright guys, hey, we got everything wired up. I hope you liked that double-sided fast forward of me working. I thought it was better. I didn't talk much because I just really wanted to get the job done so we could get on. I already have the machine up on the jack stands. I just wanted to let you know we were done. We're moving on. We got the gauges hooked up. The only problem we ran into was the directions for the RPM gauge weren't exactly clear on where to hook the signal wire. Some gauges say hook it around the spark plug wire. Others say hook it. And in fact, I looked on Odyssey Pilot website that has posts. In fact, this post was from 19 years ago that had directions for the FL350 on where to hook the RPM gauge. And the RPM gauge hooks in right behind, right to the coil wire, to the black and yellow side. So we're gonna have to get it. I'm one connector short away from making a little jumper that we can hook up you know, our coil wire, but also be able to hook up our RPM gauge. So I'm just going to have that kind of jerry-rigged for now, just show you guys how it works. I had to set it, there's a setting on the back, because since it's a 2-stroke, it fires on every stroke instead of every other stroke, so we had to set it accordingly. So alright guys, let me show you what's going on. We got you a good view of the gauges there. I'm going to go ahead and turn them on. Ta-da! I don't know if you can see, but when the gauges are on, this switch turns red. It's actually the switches has a light in it. So when the switch is red, the gauges are on. And I don't know if you saw the RPM gauge set. So let's go ahead, start this up. Watch that temperature gauge. 400 is idle. So let's see if it comes up. 400 is where it starts. So when we start seeing that creep up, 450, 500, we know we're good. So keep an eye on that. Let's do this. Alright guys, damn camera cut off. Let's do it again. Alright, let's do this. Watch that RPM gauge. Our exhaust temperature gauge is working, guys. I'm really happy with our gauges. Here, let me walk you around. There we go. Sitting there purring like a kitten. Oops. RPM gauge fell down. Yep, we're sitting right above 400. Alright, let me sit you back down. Hey, our gauge works, guys. Okay, fantastic. Alright guys, how about we get to end this episode with 2-stroke smoke in the air. There's no better way. Now that we got our gauges installed and we know we're working right, I was so relieved to see movement on that exhaust gas temperature gauge. You guys were seeing it in real time for the first time with me, and I'm glad you guys stopped by to see it. So on that note, let's give a big shout out to Joe from ODATV. That's ODDATV.com for all your FL350 and 350 parts. He does have parts for other machines, and he is a Comet Clutch distributor. So don't get left out, don't feel left out. Head on over to ODATV and get yourself something to keep your machine on the road, because that's our goal, one machine at a time. So until next week, guys, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, tell me I'm doing a good job and you like the progress, because next week, trail testing and tuning, guys. You heard it for the first time right here. Trail testing and tuning next episode. Alright guys, until then, I'm going to be working hard. I got a couple things done that you haven't seen. It's going to be amazing. So tune in next week. I'll see you then. Booyah! I love you guys.